Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in. I see that some people, Remy says, Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I just want to say that Assalamu alaikum in Arabic means peace be upon you. And before the Muslim communities used this term, Assalamu alaikum, to wish peace to the other when they are greeting someone, this was used before them by also the Christians, and I believe also by the Jewish people. I'm not sure about that, but this is not an Islamic per se, but the Muslims nowadays use it, let's say, widely, and I highly like this term, and I use it all the time with my Christian friends or Jewish friends or even Muslim friends, and I find it very, let's say, a good way of greeting someone when you're wishing peace. And one of the reasons why I established the channel of Syriana Analysis in 2017, when the war was enraging in Syria, is to show the people what is happening there and to tell them and to show them what the governments are doing in Syria and the killing that they are doing in Syria and the pain they're inflicting upon the Syrian people, so that I try to change the minds and the public opinion in the West. If I can change a 0.5% or 1% or only two people in Europe or in the United States, that would be a great achievement for me and also for the sake of Syria and its stability and its security. So, salam alaikum, all guys, if you're watching me from the United States, if you're watching me from Southern America, from the Latin American countries, salam alaikum if you're watching me from Europe, from Africa, from Asian countries, from India, from Pakistan, from all around the world. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's video. The big title of today's video, as you see in the title, is how the United States lost the Global South. And the Global South are the countries who are in Northern Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, in India, in the Middle East, or what we call West Asia. Most of the countries who are not in the US-led unipolar world. And it seems that the United States is losing these countries, and there are rival powers such as Russia and China are filling this vacuum, and they are exploiting this moment to gain the trust of the people in these countries and also the governments. And this is what I'm going to address today in this video. However, before that, I just want to, guys, give you two news. One of them is heartbreaking, which happened today. So unfortunately, today the Israeli occupation forces, they bombed southern Lebanon, and they bombed a journalistic crew. So the Israeli drone targeted on Tuesday morning a journalist crew in southern Lebanon and killed two journalists from Al Mayadin regional, let's say, outlet. They are based in Beirut. The names of these journalists are Farah Omar and Rabia Ma'mari. Al Mayadin issued a statement saying Israel, quote, deliberately targeted the journalists. Moments after the end of the live coverage, Al Mayadin says the Israeli army has hit the journalist crew car, which had a press sign on it. This is the photo of the journalist victims. And just 1 hour before I received the news of the killing of this journalist, I saw her live on Mayadin TV. And according to Mayadin, that the moment she finished her live coverage from southern Lebanon, she went to the car with her colleague, who was the cameraman. And when they started driving the car, 10 minutes later, a drone came and bombed the car, which had the press logo on it. So if these reports are accurate, we can consider this a war crime, and they have deliberately targeted and killed two journalists and murdered them. And this is a heinous crime, in my opinion, and it's been happening in the past 4 to 5 weeks. Over 62 journalists have been killed now in Lebanon and in the Gaza Strip. I think 59 of them are from the Gaza Strip, and most of the time we can see that always justifications for these crimes, especially by the so-called warriors on X, who justify these crimes by posting videos from Syria, from other countries, and they say these journalists were embedded with quote-unquote terrorist organizations, so they deserve to get killed. This is really horrible news. However, so first of all, I would like to express my condolences to the families of these two journalists and their beloved ones. I have colleagues who knew them personally, and they're mourning them. And yeah, what can I say more about this? The other news also coming from this field of journalism, but this is not really a bad news. I just want to give you a little bit of context about this. 16 years ago, Orient TV was launched by the Syrian Belgian billionaire. His name is Ghassan Aboud. Orient TV focused on drama because they started, I think, in 2006. Orient TV back then focused on drama and social affairs and didn't put politics and international relations on its list of priorities until 2011, when the CIA initiated the regime change war in Syria. And here I'm asking the people to Google Timber Sycamore to understand what was this covert operation about of the CIA, and how this covert operation was one of the costliest covert operations in the history of the CIA. Since 2011, the Turkish-based Orient TV, they were in Turkey, their journalistic policy towards Syria could be summarized in: so when the war started in 2011, all of a sudden they did a U-turn and they started speaking about politics and domestic affairs in Syria, and their policy were characterized by sectarianism, racism, identity politics, class politics, seditions, collaboration with the Qatari and Turkish regimes, hatred toward the minorities, especially against the Armenians. I'm an ethnic Armenian, and pro-Israelism. They were very pro-Israel, and currently they were criticizing or praising the Israeli side in the Gaza Strip. Orient TV didn't spare a moment without brainwashing the younger generation in Syria and urging them to adopt sectarianism and racism. So they're basically doing, they're pursuing this policy of the majority versus the minority approach. They're trying to tell the people, look, your president Bashar al-Assad and his father were from the Alevi minority, and you guys are 70% of Sunnis. You have to rise against him and you have to remove him from power. So they were completely disregarding the fact that both Bashar and Hafez were pan-Arabists. They didn't pursue sectarian politics, but their opposition politics to Assad, because they didn't enjoy enough support from the people, they didn't have grassroots support, so they have to create the sectarianism in the society so that they bring the majority of the Sunni people, 70% of them, and alarm them and urge them to fight against the Syrian government, by claiming that the Syrian government is an Alevi or it's a minority-led government, which was completely untrue, of course, because the Syrian army, for example, which was fighting this insurgency in Syria, 70% of it are from the Sunni families, because the Syrian army represents every man, every man in the Syrian society. And if we do the calculation, 70% of them are from the Sunni families. I mean, even the wife of President Assad is from a Sunni family, but they played this dirty game. So the policy was to poison the brains of the youth and urge them to either carry arms against the Syrian government or become anti-government activists on the payroll of regional and international powers. In the past 5 years alone, Orient TV found the time to post multiple video reports about me, which were full of lies and incitements. So they made 3 or 4 videos about me. I have them here in my archives, and they told all sorts of lies about me, and they incited against me. They portrayed me as an anti-Islam, anti-refugee, and a racist person to turn the anti-Assad Syrian refugees in Germany against me. Basically, they're projecting their racism, their sectarianism, and their hatred toward the refugees and toward the minorities and toward everything that represents the beauty of Syria. They're projecting it and accusing me of everything that they are, right? They're the racists, they're the sectarians, and they called me all these names. But the videos that Orient TV posted on Facebook were watched by hundreds of thousands of people. One of the videos that they posted was watched by 1.5 million people, by the way. And the comments, if you go to the comments, you would lose your mind. You would not want to live anymore. You would be afraid to go outside in the street anymore, because they were all full of death threats and sectarian fantasies, and comments like, the Turks were right to exterminate the Armenians 100 years ago. My inbox on Facebook was hundreds of messages, all telling me they will slaughter me, they will decapitate me, they will hang me. There were videos posted because of this. Because of Orient TV, other people were encouraged to post videos saying that they will hang me, they will do this, they will do that, all because of them, of Al Jazeera, of the German mainstream media who did this. These videos were aimed at motivating the radicalized youth to target me, which happened multiple times in Berlin between 2019 and 2023. I was targeted multiple times by physical and verbal assaults. People tried to hit me in the streets, and it was horrible. Orient TV didn't have to prove any of its claims against me to its large propagandized audience. They only had to repeat the lies often enough, and it became the truth. This is how this channel operated. This was a big intelligence, in my opinion, operation. They just created their own truth without even verifying it, without even trying to prove that this is correct. They just have to repeat like the Nazis used to do during the World War II or the era before that, and just repeat the lies often enough, and it become a truth. So today, Orient TV announced that it will close the channel permanently, guys. I think it's a good day for Syria, and Syrians will be less indoctrinated to hate each other. And I think also it's a good news for me. And I would only say good riddance. This is the guy who owned this Orient TV, Ghassan Aboud, and he's a billionaire. And he was on the front page of the Forbes billionaire. I think he's among the 20 first billionaires in the Arab world. I think this is a good news, really, and it could be part of this probably compromise that the the Russians are trying to do between the Syrians and the Turks, because they're basically based in Turkey, right? Their headquarters is in Turkey. So if they are inciting against Syria all the time from Turkey, probably the Syrian side told the Turkish side through the mediator that they have to show some goodwill and they have to close this channel because they're inciting on sectarian strifes, on internal instability, and urging the people to carry arms against the government. This is the approach. So if you want to unify the country again, and if you want to make peace with Syria again, this could be one of the conditions of Syria to Turkey to close it. And this channel basically was pro-Turkey, pro-Qatar, and also they were pro-Israel, and they were probably the first Syrian TV channel that they hosted Israeli officials. I think they also hosted Avichai Ederei, the spokesperson of the Israeli army, on social media, and they have conducted an interview with him. And one of the journalists, she was obsessed with me all the time, calling lawyers here in Berlin to deport me from Germany, and tagging me all the time on Twitter, and tagging the Office of Migration on Twitter and asking them why am I not deported yet from Germany, etc., etc. She conducted this interview with Avichai Ederei, and she went to Israel. And in the Syrian law, you're not allowed to go to Israel, and you could lose your nationality if you go to Israel. You would be considered a traitor if you go to Israel, because there is no relations between Syria and Israel. And if you receive the Syrian passport, and if you check behind in the papers, it says you can go, I think, to 191 or 92 countries except for Israel or something like that. It's written behind. So this is what happened today. I wanted to cover these two cases. I think those are important. But let's go back to the main topic of today's video, guys, and how the United States and the collective West have lost the global south. And I would like to start with Ibrahim Hashem. He's, by the way, an Emirati expert. I think he's based in China, and this is what he wrote. And I think he brilliantly summarized why the West's image and the so-called rules-based order has become a mockery in the rest of the world. He says, Gaza and Palestinians have exposed the rules-based international order as nothing but a hypocritical and rapacious mechanism to exploit the majority of the world for the sake of a tiny minority of hegemonists. Now that the Israeli occupation forces, supported shamelessly by Western governments, have been barbarically attacking Palestinian civilians for more than 40 days, before the eyes of the entire world, it is clear that this so-called rules-based order is a system established and maintained to prop up a crumbling hegemony at the expense of most of the world. Also, now that the world has turned against Zionism and its backers, one wonders how much value the Israel brand still has, and how much credibility Zionist backers still have. It's obvious that Zionism has become a liability, and this is not only. I've seen multiple people saying this, that Zionism has become a liability. One of them was Shahid Bolson, also was saying that Zionism has become a liability, and for the owners of the corporations and the billionaires and the oligarchs who manage the real affairs in the United States, they see now Zionism as a burden, because the financial power and the financial bloc is moving from the west to the east. So they have to catch up with this change, with the shift in the balance of power, especially when it comes to the finances. And in the Middle East, one of the main powers are the Saudis, the Emiratis, and they are urging the Americans to create a two-state solution, to push for the two-state solution, and for the Palestinian statehood if they have to normalize relations with Israel. And he says, in business, when an asset becomes a liability, generating more losses than profits, shrewd businessmen will abandon it sooner rather than later, regardless of the sunk costs. The time of reckoning is rapidly arriving of Zionism and Zionist supremacists. This is, of course, according to him. And I just want to make it make sense, right? If the corporations in the United States, for example, when Xi Jinping went to San Francisco, right? Yeah. And he met with the 20 CEOs of the main American companies, and all of them were present to shake hands with Xi Jinping, not because they like Xi Jinping. Probably in private rooms, they dislike China, they dislike Xi Jinping, they despise the communist system there, or whatever they call it. But interest is interest. And these people know that their current and future interests cannot be guaranteed, and their financial interest cannot be sustained unless they have good relations with China, unless their investments is secure in China. And because China is also a growing power, not only in Far East Asia, not only in Central Asia, but also in the Middle East, the partners of China in the region, who are they? Saudi Arabia, for example, is the biggest exporter of oil and fuel to China. And the Chinese have made a peace between the Iranians and the Saudis in the region. If you combine all this together, you will see that there is a change in the power dynamics in the world. And the Americans, at the moment, the current political system, the financial system in the United States, cannot sustain in the same path and the same process that it is functioning right now, which is printing money more than producing products. Like, if you produce a product and you sell the product and you gain the dollar, it's different than printing the money. If you produce 1,000 cars, and you sell the 1,000 cars to another country outside of the United States, and you receive cash dollars, you are actually improving your economy. But if you're not selling enough products compared to how much you're printing the money, then you will have inflation in your country. This is just in my understanding. And you can see at the moment that the inflation rates are very high in the United States. And I'm not only talking about the official numbers. Just see in the past 10 to 20 years how much, for example, the rents have increased in the United States compared to the wages and the salaries, and how much the groceries. Those are the basic things, right? Like, you may spend 50 to 60% of your income if you spend it on food, and then you have the medication, which is very expensive. The college is very expensive. The medication is very expensive in the United States. So all in all combined, I don't think this is a sustainable economic approach. So the owners of this big capital in the United States, they know it, and they see the shift that is happening around the world. So they're moving their also assets or interest to diversify it to the outside world. And one of these countries is, of course, China. But because of the situation in the Middle East, and because that this brutal war of Israel against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and also in the West Bank, and because of the revival of what is called the Arab Peace Initiative, that the Arabs are saying, okay, if you want us to live in peace and harmony with the Israelis, then let's revive the Arabic Peace Initiative and let's strike a deal with Israel based on that. And that means a Palestinian statehood. And that's why, guys, all of a sudden you see that all these media outlets and all these politicians are speaking about the two-state solutions. It's because now in their interest to speak about it, not because they want for the Palestinians to have a state. They would never give a Palestinian state unless it's in their interest. And I think now this is what the Saudi diplomacy is working behind closed doors. And I'm not praising the Saudis, like I've been so much critical of the Saudis in the past and currently as well. I'm just saying what they're doing in this regard. Is this in the interest of the Palestinian people? I don't know. Palestinians have to pick and choose what best suits them and what is the best solution for their conflict with the Israelis in this regard. But the Americans are losing credibility big time. And I think they have to do more about this because it's becoming very disgusting, for example, to see John Kirby goes, gives a statement like this. Like he makes the position of the White House and the United States government clear. Israel is not engaged in genocide, but Hamas has engaged in genocide according to him. Take a look.
But this word genocide is getting thrown around in a pretty inappropriate way by lots of different folks. What Hamas wants, make no mistake about it, is genocide. They want to wipe Israel off the map. They've said so publicly, more than one occasion. In fact, just recently. And they've said that they're not going to stop. What happened on the 7th of October is going to happen again and again and again. And what happened on the 7th of October? Murder, slaughter of innocent people in their homes or at a music festival. That's genocidal intentions. Yes, there are too many civilian casualties in Gaza. Yes, the numbers are too high. Yes, too many families are grieving. And yes, we continue to urge the Israelis to be as careful and cautious as possible. That's not going to stop from the president right on down. But Israel is not trying to wipe the Palestinian people off the map. Israel's not trying to wipe Gaza off the map. Israel's trying to defend itself against a genocidal terrorist threat. So when we're going to start, if we're going to start using that word, fine, let's use it appropriately.
I truly do not understand how much should the Israeli side do for him to say something different. I mean, they wiped out the entire northern Gaza. There is not this one standing building in northern Gaza. They have bombarded everything. They wiped out everything in northern Gaza. And they declared goal. Their officials come to TV and they say, this is our goal. We're going to send them to the Sinai. This is ethnic cleansing. Genocide is probably killing them, right? But ethnic cleansing, it doesn't have to be that you go and kill them. It can also be that you ethnically cleanse them from a region and push them into other regions. For example, Azerbaijan did with the Armenians. 120,000 Armenians were forcefully being displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh to Armenia proper. This is ethnic cleansing. And now what Israel is doing is pushing all the Palestinians, or successfully pushed all the Palestinians from the north to the south now. And they're coming and saying, oh, now we have to come to the south. We have to bomb the southern area because now Hamas in the south, right? This is the attempt of ethnic cleansing. They're pushing the Palestinians to the border with the border with Egypt, Rafah border crossing, so that these 2.2 million Palestinians go to Egypt. But the Egyptian side was clear, this will be considered an act of war. They will not accept it. So I think the Americans have to solve this dilemma now with the Israelis. In public, they are just, sorry to say, pimping for Israel, but I think behind closed doors, they are asking the Israelis to stop the operation in a few days. And the situation is so unbearable. And this is an article, guys, coming from an Indian website, Mint Premium. Like, in India, there is a general sympathy with Israel, not with the Palestinians. And this is coming from an Indian website. He says the West's chance of winning the global south has dimmed as the Gaza war rages. And the summary of the article says the US-led rich world can't expect much cooperation from Asian, African, and Latin American countries in a world where perspectives on issues like Palestine aren't always Western. Yeah, people in these countries do not share the position of the West regarding Palestine-Israel issue. And in the rest of the world, for example, this is a very brilliant article by Giorgio Cafiro. We have had it on Syriana Analysis once, and we discussed other issues. And I just summarized this article for you. I think it's important to see why these countries see that the U.S. support for Israel war on Gaza is damaging its global standing, and why the other countries and non-Arabic countries and non-Islamic countries, they have a sympathy for Palestine and not for Israel. The Biden administration's level of support for Israel amid its ongoing war on Gaza has caused anti-American sentiments to surge in the Middle East and North Africa. The anger directed against Washington is reminiscent of the regional environment in the years following the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Yet, outrage over the carnage in Gaza is not only coming from MENA countries, which is Middle East and North Africa, it is present all over the global south. An intense war of narratives is being waged. Official US government talking points about Israel's right to defend itself are extremely out of touch with public opinion globally. Across Africa, Latin America, and Asia, many are mobilizing in opposition to the US and other Western powers backing Israel. The fact that 5 Latin American countries, which is Belize, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, and Honduras, I think this is Brazil, right, have suspended diplomatic relations with Israel or withdrawn their ambassadors highlights this point. Many in the West view the decades long conflict between Israel and the Palestinians as a Middle Eastern conflict, but outside of the West, the question of Palestine invokes feelings that many in the US and Western Europe have difficulty in understanding. Ultimately, to many, the Palestinian cause speaks to a fight against Western neocolonialism. Many outside the West view Israel as a European settler colonial enterprise that was imposed on Arabs in Palestine. This is a question I asked few Latin American friends or colleagues who are anti-imperialist, and they had their experiences with the United States in the past, and they all told me the same thing, that the sentiments of the Latin American people, some of the Latin American people toward the Palestinians, is because of their experience with colonialism and neo-colonialism, and they see Israel, as Giorgio said here, they see as a Western neo-colonial project in the Middle East, and it's not necessarily for them an Arab-Israeli conflict, but a colonialist against an anti-colonialist project. So there is a war of narratives in an increasingly multipolar world. Western powers seize to dominate the global information environment. After Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Washington struggled to unite the world behind the West's anti-Moscow agenda. Last year, most countries in the Arab world, Africa, and other parts of the non-Western world didn't buy the US and Europe's arguments about the need to impose crippling sanctions on Russia in defense of the so-called rules-based order. Many saw real hypocrisy in Washington's efforts to rally the world against Russia for violating Ukraine's sovereignty and committing war crimes in that country, particularly considering the 2003 invasion of Iraq and other aspects of the US foreign policy, such as uncritical support for Israeli actions that constitute flagrant violations of international law. It's not only in 2003, in 2006 in Lebanon, in 2007 in Gaza, in 2011 in Libya, in 2011 in Syria. All these wars, whether they're hybrid or direct, they were regime change wars or not, those are all American wars and also Israeli wars in the region, right? Now, the level of difficulty that the US would have in trying to bring countries against Russia or any other power that's an adversary of Washington would be significantly higher in light of the Biden administration's ironclad support for Israel's war on Gaza. For all the Biden administration's focus on great power competition and efforts to challenge China and Russia's rising power on the international stage, the White House's policies vis-a-vis the war on Gaza are the huge boost to Beijing and Moscow. This is very correct. Chinese and Russian officials have benefited from their ability to point out Washington's isolation from virtually all global South countries when it comes to Israel-Palestine, while also presenting Beijing and Moscow as increasingly in touch with the views held by elites in governments and average citizens throughout Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia in relation to the war on Gaza. Look, this is a very important thing that we have to iterate on, and that is the Chinese and the Russians. It's not like they are acting sneaky, acting in a way that waiting for the other side to fall and come and pretend that they are the savior, right? It's not like they are creating the problem and then providing the solution. No, the Americans have made these problems. And their rivals, they're playing smart, and they're also playing fair in this regard, and they're presenting themselves as a mediator, as a middle ground. How can the United States say that they can mediate between the Palestinians and the Israelis? It's a serious question. How is it possible for the Americans to send weapons to Israel? All sorts of weapons, to send nuclear submarines to the region, to give a carte blanche for Israel to commit these war crimes in the Gaza Strip, to give a media cover, political cover, like everything. The United States is on the side of Israel. How can it be that the United States will play a mediator role? The mediator should be at least neutral. So in this case, I think the best actor that can play this role is China. But China, especially after its successful model between the Iranians and the Iranians and the Saudis, I think they can present themselves as a mediator in this regard. And this is not surprising. And see what's happening. Like the Saudis, they know where to go nowadays, right? So this is a tweet on the 18th of November by the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia. They say Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan announces the start of the work of the ministerial committee in charge of the Arab Islamic Summit concerned with formulating an international action to stop the war on Gaza. And the first stop is China. Like, they didn't go the first stop to the United States, guys. The first stop was to China. And he took with him many foreign ministers from Arabic countries and from Islamic countries. And before they traveled to Beijing, this is what he said.
ستبدأ بإذن الله يوم الاثنين. المحطة الأولى ستكون في الصين، وسننتقل بعدها إلى عدد من العواصم لإيصال الرسالة الواضحة أن لا بد من وقف لإطلاق النار فورا، ولا بد من إدخال المساعدات والاحتياجات الإنسانية إلى غزة فورا كذلك، وأيضا لا بد أن نعمل لإنهاء هذه الأزمة وإنهاء هذه الحرب التي تشن على غزة في أسرع وقت.
So he's speaking about ceasefire here, guys. He's speaking about a ceasefire, not a pause. And he's not saying that we need the temporary end of hostilities. No. He's speaking about a ceasefire, which means a long-term ceasefire, entering humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. And I think this is very, very, very important step by the Saudis to go to China before they went anywhere else. And Arnaud Bertrand, he's really good on the Chinese affairs. He says this is immensely significant and confirms Gaza could well prove to be the USS Suez crisis moment. To formulate an international action to stop the war on Gaza, Arab Islamic foreign ministers represented by Saudi Arabia say the first stop will be China. In other words, they now recognize China's legitimacy as the leading force for peace here, meaning we effectively aren't in a US-led world order anymore. In fact, they likely now see the US as a disruptor of order. Let's see how this pans out. I wrote a couple of weeks back something like this. Okay, so what did the Chinese side said when the Arabic delegation arrived there? I think this is also important. The Chinese side was very welcoming and very warm welcoming, I would say. And the Chinese foreign minister said, we are ready to work with our brothers and sisters in the Arab and Islamic countries to put an end to the fighting in Gaza, alleviate the humanitarian crisis, and promote a comprehensive, just, and lasting settlement of the Palestinian issue.
国际社会必须紧急行动起来，采取切实有效措施，阻止这场悲剧继续蔓延扩大。中国在这场冲突中坚定站在公道和正义一边。冲突爆发以来，我们一直在为推动冲突降温、保护平民安全而努力，为扩大人道救援、防止人道灾难而奔走，为重回两国方案、早日实现巴勒斯坦问题全面、公正、持久解决而呼喊。本月11号，阿拉伯伊斯兰国家召开联合特别峰会，就巴以局势发出清晰而强烈的共同声音，呼吁推动停火止战、保护平民、开展人道救援、落实两国方案。 中方对此完全支持。我们愿意同阿拉伯伊斯兰国家的兄弟姐妹们共同努力，为尽快平息加沙战火、缓解人道主义危机、推动巴勒斯坦问题早日得到全面、公正、持久解决，做出我们的不懈努力。
لابد أن ننتقل إلى وقف إطلاق النار فوراً، لابد أن تدخل المواد الإغاثية والمساعدات فوراً، لابد أن نتجنب مزيد من القتل.
إسرائيل أعلنت الحرب مرة أخرى ضد الشعب الفلسطيني. هذه ليست الحرب الأولى التي تعلنها إسرائيل ضد الشعب الفلسطيني، ولكن إسرائيل تريد أن تحولها إلى الحرب الأخيرة. الحرب الأخيرة التي تقضي فيها بشكل كامل على وجود الشعب الفلسطيني على ما تبقى من أرضه التاريخية في فلسطين. بمنع حرية التنقل والحركة والعيش الكريم في الضفة الغربية وحرب الاستيطان.
So guys, in my opinion, there is going to be a big shift in the Middle East. What is going to happen is Saudi Arabia has a project for the region. It's an economic model, and they want to lead this economic reconstruction of the region after few decades of wars, destruction, colonialism, waged by the United States, other colonialist powers before them, like the French, like the Brits. And now when they see that there is a shift in the balance of power to the east from the United States, from the collective West to the east, probably the Saudis see in this an opportunity for them to rise as a regional economic power and lead the region into reconstruction, into welfare. But in order to do that, they need stability in the region. Therefore, one of the things that they did in 2018, they stopped supporting the terrorist groups in Syria. You remember that. And the moment they stopped supporting the terrorist groups, all the surroundings of Damascus, in Al Ghouta areas and in Jobar and in all these areas, Harasta, etc., they were all liberated by the Syrian, Russian, and Hezbollah forces. Quickly. In a few months, they were all cleansed from the terrorists. Just because the Saudis withdrew the funding, right? Because they believe now in a different approach in the region, and that is that their economic model and converting Saudi Arabia into an economic hub in the region requires from them to stabilize the region. So they wanted to stabilize Syria. First, they stopped supporting terrorists. Second, they opened diplomatic channels with Syria. Third, they returned Syria to the Arab League and invited Bashar al-Assad 2 times to Saudi Arabia. And they encouraged other Arabic countries to do the same, and they did. So they restored Syria to its Arabic, what they say, the Arabic family, right? This was all led by Saudi Arabia. Second, they strike the deal with Iran, which is extremely important, with the mediation of China. And now they are on good terms. And now they're discussing even this escalation in Israel-Palestine. Remember, just a decade ago, when every time there was tension in Israel-Palestine or between Lebanon and Palestine, between Lebanon and Israel, Saudi Arabia used to be completely on the opposite side of any Arabic militant group, and they wished and hoped that they would be crushed, etc. Now, I think, this is just my analysis, probably I'm wrong, I don't know, that because of this requirement of stabilizing the region, and the Saudis are trying to stabilize the region for the benefit of their of implementing their economic model in the region, this also requires solving the Arab-Israeli conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So the condition here is if we want to stabilize the region from their perspective, they think they have to solve the Palestinian issue. And to solve the Palestinian issue, they're not going to implement the Israeli vision, which is complete occupation of all Palestinian territories, annihilation of the Palestinians, ethnic cleansing, pushing them to Sinai, etc. No. The Saudis see that the two-state solution is the best solution. But in order to implement that, they also believe, probably, those are just my opinions, guys, probably believe that radical Zionism cannot stay. Therefore, they are trying to find, how we say, somebody to sacrifice now. And this sacrifice scapegoat is going to be Benjamin Netanyahu and his coalition of very radical fascist coalition. They're going to push them under the bus, and they will find someone who is more progressive or less radical to come and replace him, and who accepts the two-state solutions, and they will revive this Arabic Initiative for Peace plan, and they will try to solve it. I think the Saudis, this is what they are aiming for. They want to finish this before 2030, which is their economic vision. So if you don't know about it, guys, just also Google it, Saudi Arabia Economic Vision 2030. They want to finish this till 2030. I don't know what are they planning for Syria and the Golan Heights in this regard, but the Syrians would not give up on the Golan Heights for sure, 100% about that. I don't know how this is going to end up. If they are going to minimize radicalism in Israel and sideline Zionism, from the perspective of the Saudis, they're also going to also de-radicalize the Hamas and Jihad and other militant groups. And I think this is all also like physics. If one side is de-radicalized, the other side will also get de-radicalized, in my opinion, and they will try to revive this two-state solution. I said it yesterday in an interview. Probably this is just my opinion. I'm not pushing this upon anyone. Palestinians know best what suits them. One state solution, Palestinians, I mean, Arabs, Christians, Jews, Muslims, all living together like the rest of the world. You know, in my opinion, if there is a state that represents everyone, and there is a constitution that everyone is equal with rights and duties, and everyone's rights are respected, and everyone is equal in front of the law, this could be the best formula. I don't know. This is just my opinion, but I think the Israelis will not accept that, because from their perspective, the birth rate of the Palestinians or the Arabs are too much higher than the Jewish people. So in any democratic election, the Palestinians will definitely win in these elections, or because they're, let's say, in numbers at least, they are way more than the Jewish people there. This is from their perspective. Just wanted to tell you guys, this has been published today by the Saudi Gazette. This is not my news. They say Saudi Arabia's crown prince calls on all countries to stop exporting weapons to Israel. I mean, those are big things happening, in my opinion, in the region, and I haven't seen something like this happening in the past. And one of the big things that is also happening, and this time is from the United States. And in the United States, the polling centers say polling shows a huge age gap divides the Democratic Party on Israel. I told you guys there is the younger generation in the United States. It seems that they are way more pro-Palestine than their the previous generation. And this poll, it shows that President Joe Biden has a problem with the Democratic base when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. It's not just that his approval rating on the conflict is lower among Democrats than his overall approving rating. It's that his base is divided by age. Younger Democrats are far more likely than older Democrats to view Israel skeptically when it comes to this war, as well as the larger geopolitical context. The intra-party age gaps on this question are amongst the largest I've seen on any important issue. Take a look at a recent Quinnipiac University poll on the topic. So what is this poll? Biden's approval rating, guys, for his handling of the Israel-Hamas war among Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters is just 56%. Compare that to his 76% approval rating among Democratic voters for his overall job performance. This is the lion's share here. The lion's share, 69% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning younger than 35. So 69% of the Democrats and Democratic-leaning younger than 35 disapprove of how Biden is responding to the war. Just 24% approve. It's the inverse among older Democrats. Most Democrats 65 and older, 77% approve of Biden on this issue. Few 16% disapprove. The cause of the split is pretty clear when you dig deeper into the data. Biden has been, by most neutral accounts, more sympathetic to Israel than Palestinians during the war. That doesn't sit well with the younger Democrats. But they do not explain. I really do want to understand, personally at least, why the younger Democrats are more sympathetic toward the Palestinians. All American administrations in the past 40 to 50 years, all of them were more sympathetic to Israel than to the Palestinians. But what has changed today in 2023, that the younger generation in the United States, among the Democrats or the left, are more sympathetic toward the Palestinians, or more emboldened even to express their opinions. I'm seeing videos. It's in my opinion, it is surprising to me. I didn't expect that at all, to come from this younger generation. I don't know what they call them, Generation Z, Generation X. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you know better than me. But the generation of the TikTok, for example, and they are making brilliant videos explaining this case. And I sometimes feel like I misjudge them. And they proved me wrong on this case, at least. And I mean, salute to them, because they are speaking against injustice, in my opinion. And as we speak, guys, the foreign ministers of the Arabic and Islamic countries, they arrived in Moscow. So they first went to Beijing, and after that, they arrived now today to Moscow. So they will meet with Sergei Lavrov. So imagine what's happening in the world, guys. Arabic and Islamic countries, represented by tens of countries, headed by Saudi Arabia, they take a plane together, they go to Beijing, and then they go to Moscow, and they don't have any planned trip to the Washington, D.C. This is the decline of the American empire. This is the rapid fall of the American empire. Nobody sees now the United States as a peace broker. Nobody sees the United States that way, and nobody sees the United States with respect, because the main, I would say, perpetrator of the wars in the region and killing all these millions was the United States, and now what's happening in Gaza was the huge turning point. I mean, did we really need all this death and destruction now for this change in the balance of power? I really don't know, because the Palestinian case has been put on the shelf for quite some time, and nobody was speaking about it. And all of a sudden now, after 11 to 12,000 casualties, this issue has been revived, and it's the point. Like, you know my opinion, in 2011 with the regime change war in Syria, it started to change the balance of power in 2015 when Russia intervened and turned the table upside down on the American-led regime change war. This was the beginning of the defeat for the US empire. And then what happened in Ukraine was huge, when the Russian-backed rebels occupied some of the areas in Donbass, and then the Russians intervened in 2023. This has emboldened Russia, of course, to intervene and occupy more areas, and then they included them to the Russian Federation, right? Those were big things happened in the past. But now, all these changes that was happening, let's say, like this, with the Palestinian case, it took a radical shift. It took a radical shift, and it is going to be accelerated. Guys, those are crazy news. Those are crazy news, believe me. China, Saudi Arabia signed currency swap agreement. This is huge news, guys. I don't know how to explain this. I'm not a big economist, so I'm just summarizing this for you, what they say in the article, but then I have an article that explains. The People's Bank of China and the Saudi Central Bank recently signed a local currency swap agreement worth 50 billion yuan, which is equivalent to $6.93 billion, or 26 billion Saudi riyals. Both banks said on Monday, as bilateral relations continued to gather momentum. So the People's Bank of China and the Saudi Central Bank recently signed a local currency swap agreement worth 50 billion yuan. Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil exporter, and China, the world's biggest energy consumer, have worked to make relations beyond hydrocarbon ties in recent years, expanding collaboration into areas such as security and technology. The swap agreement, which will be valid for 3 years and can be extended by mutual agreement, quote, will help strengthen financial cooperation, expand the use of local currencies, and promote trade and investment between Riyadh and Beijing, the statement from the China's central bank. Guys, we've been saying this for quite some time. I don't know how much I should repeat this, but one of the pillars for the American empire was and still its ability to sell the dollars to the outside world, its ability to lend the dollar to the outside world, its ability to link the dollar to the sale of the oil. Like all the countries around the world, when they sell and buy, import and export the oil, it's all with dollars. This gives strength to the currency of the empire. Now, this is all changing. From now to 3 years, the Chinese and the Saudis are going to test to deal with each other with yuan, the Chinese currency. This is so big. And this is coming from the International Institute for Security Studies, the state of de-dollarization in the Gulf region. So this is the process of the de-dollarization that we were speaking about, right? So what is the de-dollarization? My tongue sometimes. De-dollarization. China's de-dollarization push in the Gulf. China has pushed the GCC states. GCC are the Gulf Cooperation Council, guys, states. China has pushed the Gulf Cooperation Council states to de-dollarize oil and gas sales. At the China GCC summit held in Riyadh in December 2022, China's President Xi Jinping announced that China will work to expand its oil and gas trade with the Arab countries and to use the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange to settle transactions in yuan. China has also proposed the extension of its cross-border interbank payment system to the GCC region as an alternative platform to SWIFT. So not only that they will deal in yuan, but there is also an alternative interbank payment system that the GCC countries can use and abandon the SWIFT, which is the American. And remember, America has weaponized the SWIFT. Every time a country says something that or does something that the United States doesn't like, then when they sanction these countries or these governments and they exclude them from the SWIFT system, the country is completely effed. They cannot do import, they cannot do export, they cannot deal with any other country. This is the state of affairs in lots of countries, such as Syria. They sanction Syria, they exclude it from the SWIFT. And even if you, and then they say, oh, but we did exceptions for the humanitarian. You can buy humanitarian things that are related to humanitarian aid, to medicine, to food. They're lying. If you exclude Syria from the SWIFT, how can we even do transactions, right? I don't know why the Syrians and the Chinese haven't done it yet. I don't really understand. Sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna just remove my hair because there are alternatives that they should pursue with China. Saudi officials have appeared responsive to China's overtures and have not ruled out the possibility of Riyadh settling oil trade in currencies other than the dollar. With encouragement from China, Saudi Arabia formally requested to join the BRICS bloc in early 2023. Some analysts have argued that the grouping which has emerged as a significant geo-economic bloc with the global south and doesn't include any of the G7 member states could serve as a vehicle for undermining the dollar's global preeminence. Saudi Arabia is also considering joining the New Development Bank, a multilateral lender set up by BRICS in 2014 as an alternative to the IMF and World Bank. So, and the difference, guys, between the New Development Bank and the IMF is that, and the World Bank, if you want to lend the money from the IMF and the World Bank, they're going to put political conditions on you. They're going to ask you to do political reforms, constitutional reforms, democratic reforms, like all this stuff that suits the American interest in your country. The Chinese do not care. They just want their to build infrastructure in your country and to have the leverage and influence over you through mutual business relationship. This is the difference, as I told you many times, between the models of China and the model of the United States. And I'm very I prepared more things for you guys, but I just want to show you like this is the state of affairs around the world, right? But you have still people, for example, like Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, and I don't want to say much about her because, you know, I live in Germany. I'm not going to put myself into trouble. But this insistence on blindly defending Israel against in the face of everything Israel is doing to the Palestinians, whether it's in Gaza or in the West Bank, is beyond me. I cannot really explain it. It's suicidal. They're shooting their own leg. They're losing the credibility around the world. The people are turning against them. The people are losing their trust. Look what she says here.
Waffenstillstand hieße ja, dass Israel mit den Hamas darüber verhandeln müssen, dass man sich jetzt nicht mehr gegenseitig beschießt. Und das würde bedeuten, dass Israel sich unter den ongoing Raketenterror nicht verteidigen könnte. Und Hamas macht jeden Tag deutlich, sie wollen Israel von der Landkarte vernichten. Das heißt, sie wollen Israel auslöschen. Und in so einer Situation muss Israel seine Bevölkerung schützen. Zugleich versuchen wir gemeinsam mit unseren internationalen Partnern, mit den Amerikanern, aber vielen arabischen Ländern, alles dafür zu tun, dass in Gaza Menschen sichere Orte haben, wo sie eben nicht ums Leben kommen, wo sie Trinkwasser erreichen, Medikamente. Und das war auch mein deutliches Anliegen, als ich in Israel war, gegenüber der israelischen Regierung deutlich zu machen, die Menschen in Gaza müssen geschützt werden. Der Kampf richtet sich gegen eine Terrororganisation, Hamas, die Israel vernichten möchte, und nicht gegen die Zivilbevölkerung in Gaza, die unschuldigen Menschen, Frauen und Kinder, die unschuldigen Palästinenser.
There is something really, it's crazy here. Like they don't want to promote for ceasefire because according to them it serves the Hamas, and at the same time they want to bring humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. This is my question. What is the purpose for the humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip? Like, do you want for the people to die with full bellies instead of empty bellies? Like, this is beyond crazy. Like, you need to activate your contacts in the region with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, with Iran. You have to go and travel to all these capitals instead of boycotting influential players in the region. I'm not going to meet with the Iranians because of women's rights, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, thousands of women are dying in the Gaza Strip. No. This is your job. You're the head of the German diplomacy. You have to go to Tehran, you have to go to Riyadh, you have to go to Ankara, you have to go to Damascus, you have to go to Beirut, you have to go activate diplomacy and try to find a way to make a ceasefire between both sides that also means that Hamas and Jihad won't fire rockets on Israel. This is what diplomacy means. This is how you bring all sides together, and this is how you play a role in the conflict. But if you want to say, oh, we don't want a ceasefire, because it serves Hamas, then what is your job exactly? Just to come to TV and say we don't want ceasefire and then say we want humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip? What are the people are going to do with humanitarian aid? Like, they're going to die with blankets? Of course they need the humanitarian aid, right? But the priority should be stopping the war. And anyone, guys, like this is very sensitive issue, by the way, and you know how much the media, they worship Greta Thunberg. And now they're all attacking her. This is from the German press. Has Greta Thunberg betrayed the climate movement? Look what they say. Is Greta Thunberg anti-Semitic or just incredibly naive? Her comments in Amsterdam last weekend left little doubts as to where she stands on the Middle East conflict. The iconic activist actions now threaten to divide the climate movement and the left. Guys, look how many authors there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 authors came to write a long article attacking Greta Thunberg. And not even in my 7 dreams, I imagined that one day I'm going to say, don't do this to Greta Thunberg, you know? And I think if her position is principled, it's correct. You have to be against the occupation of the Israeli side. And you have to ask for a Palestinian statehood. This is not equal to supporting Hamas, guys. If you followed my work in the past 10 years, I've been attacking Hamas, not criticizing, attacking Hamas, attacking the Muslim Brotherhood. And because of that, I came under the radar of the Qatari-owned Al Jazeera, which is the main supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas in the region. And they smeared me because of that. So I'm not a Hamas supporter. I'm not a Muslim Brotherhood supporter. I'm for the Palestinians to have a statehood. I'm for the Palestinians to have dignified life. And this is what I see from Greta Thunberg's position. But there is a conspiracy theory that is going on around and it says that Greta Thunberg is doing some sort of a psyop here, because Greta Thunberg is a very controversial figure among the right. So when someone like her expresses solidarity with the Palestinians, she will definitely push the political right on the side of Israel and radicalize them more to be more pro-Israel. I don't know. There are some people are saying this, and attacks never stop if you are, let's say, pro-Palestinian. And this is, you remember the Ministry of Social Affairs in Spain, and although they say that this has nothing to do with her recent statements criticizing Israel and calling of sending Benjamin Netanyahu to the ICC, etc., but she has been, according to reports, she has been removed from her position recently. And I mean, some reports say it's not the case, that she wasn't fired because, I mean, the coincidence is a little bit too much coincidences, right? The president of Spain fired and removed Ione Belarra from office as the Minister of Social Justice. Belarra's dismissal came as part of a cabinet change in the Spanish government. Belarra, who became the first European minister to participate in protests supporting Palestine and had called for Netanyahu to be tried, was removed from office for unknown reasons. Yeah. So this is where are we now? I don't know if she was kicked out because of that, but it's too much coincidences if you are promoting for the Palestinian rights. You will become definitely under attack, like hers and now like Greta Thunberg. And let's see, when are they coming for me? I think they will come also after me soon. So we have to be ready for that. I'm very careful, and you know my position about this case, guys. I'm spreading education, and I'm enlightening people. I'm trying to explain them what's happening in the Middle East, away from all this propaganda and all these black and white images that they paint about this situation in the Middle East. I come from the Middle East, and yeah, I truly wish that they and work for the Jewish people, for the Muslim people, for the Christian people, all to live side by side together in peace and harmony. And I truly believe that this conflict that happened, that started in the 40s, this is not the fault of the people of the region. You know the history, you know who was occupying Palestine, the Brits, they were colonizing it, and they brought all these problems to the region. Before that, there was no problem between the Jewish people and the Muslim people and the Christian people in the region. And we can make that come true again. And I truly hope and wish for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this live streaming. And thank you so much again for watching yesterday's interview with Pepe Escobar. It's been almost 11,000 people watched it. It's great. Thank you so much. If you didn't watch it, go to the live streamings of Syriana Analysis. It was great discussion with the great geopolitical analyst and expert Pepe Escobar yesterday on Syriana Analysis. I had so much fun. He's a great person also, beside being a great analyst. And guys, if you want to support my independent work like the one I'm doing here, you can see the link here already scrolling on the screen. Patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. It's a great help from you. And also thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I just want to thank Caramel for his generous support. Thank you so much. Please keep up the great work. I will always keep up the great work. This is what motivates me to bring information and get gratitude, receive gratitude from you. It's a great pleasure knowing you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Ciao.